Red Bull Music Academy Radio presents Inside Out.
Play Japan, play Japan, play Japan, play Japan,
Play Japan.
Red Bull Music Academy Radio.
Inter FM.
Play Japan, Red Bull Music Academy Radio.
You had to be a kid to go to the club, and in one room there would be the new wave room, they would call it, which would be like Depeche Mode, The Cure, New Order, all things like that. And then there would also be a house room at that time, and this was around 1984-ish. And the house room would be all like your kind of Chicago housey stuff, like Hot Mix 5, stuff you would hear on radio stations like WBMX and GCI. So they'd be playing like Fast Eddie, they'd be playing like Julian Jeppert Perez, Ralphie Rosario. the first time I remember at that club, it was called McGreevy's in a little town called Skokie, and it was like a little Irish bar that happened to like throw teen dances. So once I saw Techniques 1200s and saw what they were, in the booth, I was like, what are those things? Because that had been the first place I actually had saw 1200s in action, and I'm like, wow, they're actually, when you hear it on the radio and you haven't seen anything, you can't really put two and two together, and there wasn't YouTube back then. There wasn't a lot of, like, you can just look on your phone and, see, like, oh, this is what a DJ is. It was like, you kind of had to be there. So I'm like, oh, I saw these. So I'm like, what are those turntables? I hadn't seen one of those. It was like, oh, they're Techniques, SL 1200. So I'm like, oh, it has pitch on it. Wow, that's really cool. So, like, from then on, it was sort of like, I want to be into that.
Play Japan, Red Bull Music Academy Radio.
Inter FM.
Chicago in that 80s period was like a breeding ground for DJs. It was just, everybody was a DJ, and it was a very friendly competition thing. There was way more DJs than clubs that could have DJs. And I mean, at that time, like, the only main pinnacle of a goal, like, in terms of DJ, was like, oh, I want to get my mix on WBMX or WGCI, which is where, like, the Hot Mix 5 had their mixes on, or Farley, Mike Hitman Wilson, like I mentioned, Ralphie Rosario, Steve South Hurley, all kind of those guys, had their mixes on Friday and Saturday night on those two stations. And this was still in Chicago. There wasn't rap music for a long time. It was like the black urban music of Chicago was house music. There was no hip hop, or, even in the early 90s, it was house. It was just, Chicago was all house. So you're like, that's my goal. I want to get on the radio. There really wasn't much of a idea like, oh, I'm going to make a living at this DJ thing. Like, that really wasn't an option at the time. It was just more like, I think I could play better than the guy that's playing, so I want to, practice and get that job. Pre-1990, like DJs were the promoters. Like if you thought we were good enough, you'd have to throw your own party, bring in the whole sound system. Like I can remember, Derek Carter, a guy named Gemini, Spencer Kinsey is his name, and myself. Like we can do parties, so we just throw our own party. You'd have to rent the sound system, you'd make the flyer at a place called Kinko's, you'd make your own little flyer, you do all the promotion all yourself, and you'd rent a keg, you'd have to do everything. Club-wise, things were a bit different than now. It was like, every night would be taken at a club, and you'd find out, so-and-so got fired for Thursday nights, and there's an opening for Thursday at this club, or there's a new club opening, and like they're having tryouts. So you'd send in your mixtape to the club, and then like they'd have you come into the club and spin during the day, and if they liked what you did, then you'd got the job. And then back then it was, one DJ plays all night. I mean, I know that kind of happens here in some smaller places here, and even in America, but now, a lot of shows have moved, DJs get set times, and there's like, maybe 3 DJs in a night or 4, but back then it was, you try out for Thursday, and Thursday's your night, so you get all night, you play from 9 until 4 in the morning, and like the salaries were, an hourly wage you would get type of thing. It was like, I think my first regular weekly club gig, I was playing at a place called Shelter in Chicago, and I was getting like $12 an hour, and I was like, wow, I'm getting $12 an hour, to play records. This is awesome. Kioki, who's from New York, a guy named Doc Martin, who's from LA, and then this other guy, John Williams. They came into play, which was kind of one of the first rave, what you would call it, a modern rave. And we're like, well, you guys just come in from, this other city and are just DJing? And you just play like 2 hours? Like, it was kind of unheard of to all of us, like Derek, everybody we knew, Sneak, all these people. Like, so wait, you just flew somewhere and, you're playing? Like, it was like kind of a whole new concept, because we didn't really have that prior to hearing that sort of thing. So it was like, oh wow, you come in and you get flown in to DJ. Wow, that sounds great. It's kind of like a streamlined rock band.
Inter FM.
Un bandoneón con su resuello tristón, la noche de cristal de la copa y del bar y del tiempo que pasó. Mi corazón con tu borracha emoción y en otra voz la voz de la historia vulgar dice divulga el dolor. Maripacito, muchachita de mi barrio, te busca por el centro, te busca y no te encuentra, siguiéndote calvario, con la cruz del mismo error, te busca por si acaso no seríamos del brazo. Vos te equivocaste con tu arrullo de seda palpitante, y yo con mi barullo de sueños delirantes, en un mundo engañador, volvamos a los dientes. Dame el brazo y vámonos.
I used to work at a record store in Chicago called Gramophone, which is where like a hub of lots of Chicago fellow DJs all worked. You know, Sneak, Derek Carter, DJ Heather, J-Dub, Ralphie Rosario, Miles Maeda. I mean, the list kind of goes on of all of us that worked in this one store. And we all would sell our mixtapes up at the counter to kind of support our vinyl addiction. So I decided to make a down-tempo tape, which was, Mushroom Jazz 1, the first mixed cassette tape of, non-house. And it was kind of, I loved scratching and I loved all that New York stuff, but I didn't really want to emulate that. It had already, been done quite well. And then, like, the whole new kind of acid jazz scene was very new, like the Talking Loud records and, like, groups like Young Disciples and some of the French hip-hop at the time. So I decided to mix the two together and make a chill tape that didn't exist, and it seemed to sort of go well. Like, people really liked it as sort of like the before party or after party soundtrack. '80s, there was actually an acid jazz scene in San Francisco that was going on. Like there was different crews like doing stuff, like guys called Behind the Post Office that were doing their own acid jazz thing. There was a group called Slide 5, which was a live group, and then another group called Brown Fellinis. And so there was like kind of different facets, and then there was like a certain group that would just play funk, soul, and then there was a couple different groups of people that would actually play the newer kind of acid jazz stuff. So that was where sort of the dance floor application of mushroom jazz kind of really picked up and people were into it. So we started like a Monday night party called Mushroom Jazz. This was even before the Mushroom Jazz CD1 came out. I never really thought it would be up to number 7, and soon it'll be a number 8. And so it's kind of interesting to see how that's developed. And and it's also I find it to be a bridge for a lot of non-electronic music people to get into electronica. Of course, maybe if you bring like a rock and roll person to a house club, they might be like, this is not my cup of tea. But I found through friends, you're like, oh, I played my aunt, this Mushroom Jazz CD, who's like never listened to anything electronic, and she loves it. She won't let me take it out of her car. So it's become sort of a good sort of a crossover. I mean, it pleases kind of the old heads that appreciate good old funk hip-hop sounds of that era, but it also kind of brings in new listeners as well.
Growing, sprouting from the backbone of dream machine. Mr. Jones, you don't know what you came for. Dream machine, rattlesnake, a charm on the dance floor. The dance floor, the dance floor. Rattlesnake, a charm on the dance floor. The dance floor, the dance floor. Da da da, boom da da. I love you, dream. Steaming in the rain. On we floor. Rattlesnake charm on the dance floor. The dance floor. The dance floor. Rattlesnake charm on the dance floor. The dance floor. The dance floor.
Play Japan.